The theme system and the Middle Byzantine army. The rise and fall of a military marvel. The Byzantine Empire, often overshadowed by its Western Roman counterpart, was a marvel of administrative and military ingenuity. For centuries, it stood as a bulwark against invasions from the East, preserving the legacy of Rome while adapting to the challenges of a changing world. At the heart of its success was the theme system, a revolutionary military and administrative structure that allowed the empire to thrive even as the Western Roman Empire crumbled. But like all great systems, the theme system was not immune to decay. Its rise and fall tell the story of an empire that once dominated the medieval world, but ultimately succumbed to its own vulnerabilities. The theme system emerged in the 7th century during the reign of Emperor Heraclius, a time when the Byzantine Empire was under immense pressure from external threats. The Sassanid Persians had overrun much of the Middle East, and the Arab caliphates were rising in power, threatening to engulf the empire entirely. In response, Heraclius and his successors reorganized the empire's military and administrative structures, creating the themes from the Greek word thema, meaning division or region. Each theme was a province governed by a strategos, a military commander who held both civil and military authority. Soldiers in the themes were granted land in exchange for military service, creating a self-sustaining system where the army could be quickly mobilized without placing a heavy financial burden on the central government. This system not only strengthened the empire's defenses, but also fostered a sense of loyalty among the soldiers who were fighting to protect their own lands. The theme system was a stroke of genius, perfectly suited to the challenges of the time. By decentralizing military authority, the empire could respond quickly to threats without waiting for orders from Constantinople. Moreover, the integration of military and civilian administration ensured that the themes were not just military outposts, but thriving communities that contributed to the empire's economy and stability. During the Macedonian Renaissance 9th–11th centuries, the theme system reached its zenith. Emperors like Basil II r. 976–1025 used the themes to expand the empire's borders, reclaiming territories lost to the Arabs and Bulgars. The thematic armies were well-trained, well-equipped, and fiercely loyal, making them a formidable force on the battlefield. One of the key strengths of the theme system was its flexibility. The size and composition of each theme's army could be adjusted based on the region's needs. For example, themes in Anatolia, which faced constant threats from the Arabs, had larger armies, while themes in the Balkans focused on defending against Slavic and Bulgar incursions. This adaptability allowed the empire to maintain a strong defense without overextending its resources. The success of the theme system during this period highlights the importance of adaptability in military strategy. The Byzantine Empire was not just reacting to threats, it was anticipating them and adjusting its defenses accordingly. This proactive approach, combined with the loyalty and skill of its soldiers, made Byzantium a dominant power in the medieval world. However, despite its successes, the theme system was not without flaws. Over time, the system began to deteriorate due to a combination of internal and external factors. One of the main issues was the fragmentation of land. As soldiers passed their land holdings down to their heirs, the plots became smaller and less productive, making it difficult for soldiers to maintain their equipment and training. This led to a decline in the quality of the thematic armies. Another problem was the centralization of power under the Macedonian emperors. While the theme system was designed to be decentralized, the emperors increasingly relied on the Tadmata, elite professional troops based in Constantinople, to maintain control. This shift undermined the authority of the stratego and weakened the theme's ability to respond to local threats. The decline of the theme system is a cautionary tale about the dangers of over-centralization. By focusing too much on the Tadmata, the emperors neglected the thematic armies, which had been the backbone of the empire's defense. This imbalance left the empire vulnerable to external threats, as the Tadmata were too few in number to defend the entire empire. The decline of the theme system came to a head in 1071 at the Battle of Manzikert, one of the most devastating defeats in Byzantine history. Facing the Seljuk Turks under Sultan Alp Arslan, Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes led a poorly coordinated army of thematic troops and mercenaries into battle. The result was a crushing defeat, with Romanos' capture and much of Anatolia lost to the Turks. The loss of Anatolia was a catastrophic blow to the Byzantine Empire. Anatolia was not only the heartland of the theme system, but also the empire's primary source of manpower and resources. Without Anatolia, the themes could no longer function effectively, and the empire was forced to rely increasingly on mercenaries and foreign troops. Manzikert was more than just a military defeat, it was a systemic failure. The battle exposed the weaknesses of the theme system, which had been deteriorating for decades. The reliance on mercenaries, the lack of coordination among the thematic armies, and the over-centralization of power all contributed to the disaster. In many ways, Manzikert was the beginning of the end for the Byzantine Empire. In the aftermath of Manzikert, the Byzantine Empire faced an existential crisis. The theme system was in shambles, and the empire was losing territory at an alarming rate. In response, Emperor Alexios I Komnenos 1081–1118 implemented a series of reforms aimed at rebuilding the empire's military. One of the most significant changes was the introduction of the pronoi system, which granted land and tax revenues to individuals in exchange for military service. While the pronoi system helped to stabilize the empire in the short term, it was not a true replacement for the theme system. The prono were often absentee landlords, more concerned with their own wealth than the defense of the empire. Moreover, the system relied heavily on foreign mercenaries, further eroding the empire's military capabilities. The Komnenian reforms were a valiant effort to save the empire, but they were ultimately insufficient. The pronoi system lacked the cohesion and loyalty of the theme system, and the reliance on mercenaries created new vulnerabilities. While Alexios I managed to halt the empire's decline temporarily, he could not reverse the underlying issues that had led to its downfall. The theme system was one of the most innovative military and administrative structures in history, allowing the Byzantine Empire to survive and thrive for centuries. However, its decline marked the beginning of the empire's end, as the loss of Anatolia and the rise of external threats proved too much to overcome. The story of the theme system is a reminder of the importance of adaptability, loyalty, and decentralization in maintaining a strong defense. The pronoi system and the late Byzantine army, a tale of adaptation and decline. Imagine an empire that once stretched from the sun-drenched coasts of North Africa to the snow-capped mountains of the Caucasus, now reduced to a shadow of its former self. By the late 11th century, the Byzantine Empire was in crisis. The Battle of Manzikert in 1071 had shattered its military might, and the loss of Anatolia, the empire's breadbasket and recruiting ground, left it vulnerable to invaders. In this dire situation, the Byzantines turned to a new system of military organization, the pronoi system. But was this innovation enough to save the empire, or did it merely delay the inevitable? Let's dive into the story of the pronoi system, its successes, its failures, and why it ultimately could not halt the decline of the Byzantine army. The pronoi system was introduced during the reign of Emperor Alexios I Komnenos 1081–1118, a ruler known for his attempts to revive the Byzantine Empire. The system was a response to the collapse of the theme system, which had been the backbone of Byzantine military organization for centuries. Under the theme system, soldiers were granted land in exchange for military service, creating a self-sustaining army. However, the loss of Anatolia and the empire's shrinking borders made this system untenable. The pronoi system, in contrast, was a form of conditional land grant. The emperor would grant an individual known as a pronoi the right to collect taxes and labor services from a specific piece of land. In return, the pronoi was obligated to provide military service, often as a heavily armed cavalryman. Unlike the theme soldiers, who were tied to their local provinces, the pronoirs were directly accountable to the central government. The pronoi system was a clever adaptation to the empire's changing circumstances. By tying military service to tax revenue, the Byzantines ensured that their soldiers had a vested interest in the empire's survival. However, this system also had significant drawbacks. The pronoirs were often absentee landlords, more concerned with their own wealth than the defense of the empire. Moreover, the system relied heavily on the emperor's ability to enforce loyalty, which became increasingly difficult as the empire's power waned. The pronoi system had some notable successes. For example, it allowed the Byzantines to maintain a semblance of a standing army during a time of economic and territorial decline. The pronoirs, often native Byzantines, were better equipped and trained than the farmer soldiers of the theme system. They formed the core of the late Byzantine army, fighting in key battles against the Seljuk Turks, Bulgarians, and later the Ottomans. However, the system was far from perfect. The pronoirs were not full-time soldiers. They were reservists who could be called upon when needed. This meant that the Byzantine army was often undermanned and unprepared for sudden invasions. Additionally, the wealthiest preneurs maintained small retinues of soldiers, but these were rarely sufficient to turn the tide of battle. The prenoia system was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided the empire with a flexible and cost-effective military force. On the other hand, it created a class of semi-independent landowners who were more interested in their own prosperity and the empire's survival. This lack of centralized control would prove to be a fatal flaw as the empire faced increasingly powerful enemies. The prenoia system is often compared to Western feudalism, but there were key differences. In Western Europe, feudal lords owned their land outright and could pass it on to their heirs. In contrast, the preneurs did not own the land. They merely had the right to collect taxes from it. The land itself remained the property of the state, and the prenoia grants could not be subdivided or inherited. This distinction was crucial. It meant that the Byzantine emperor retained ultimate control over the land, preventing the rise of powerful feudal lords who could challenge his authority. However, it also meant that the preneurs had less incentive to invest in their land or defend it vigorously. By the 14th century, the prenoia system was in decline. The empire's territories had shrunk to little more than the city of Constantinople and a few scattered outposts. The preneurs, once the backbone of the Byzantine army, were now few in number and poorly equipped. The empire's economic decline meant that there was little revenue to support the system, and many preneurs abandoned their military obligations. The final blow came with the rise of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans, with their highly organized and well-equipped army, quickly overran the remaining Byzantine territories. The prenoia system, designed for a different era, was no match for the Ottomans' superior tactics and technology. The decline of the prenoia system is a microcosm of the broader decline of the Byzantine Empire. It was a system that worked well in times of stability, but was ill-suited to the challenges of a rapidly changing world. The empire's inability to reform and adapt ultimately sealed its fate. The prenoia system is a fascinating example of how societies adapt to changing circumstances. It was a creative solution to the challenges of military organization, but it was also deeply flawed. The system's reliance on state control and its lack of flexibility made it vulnerable to external pressures and internal decay. The story of the prenoia system offers valuable lessons for understanding the rise and fall of empires. A strong military is essential for the survival of any state, but it must be supported by a stable economy, effective leadership, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The Byzantine Empire's failure to address these challenges led to its eventual collapse. The prenoia system was one of the last attempts by the Byzantine Empire to save itself from decline. While it had some successes, it was ultimately unable to halt the empire's downward spiral. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and its military. But the legacy of the prenoia system lives on as a reminder of the challenges of governance and the importance of adaptability. The role of mercenaries and foreign soldiers, the Byzantine Empire's double-edged sword. Picture this: the year is 1071, and the Byzantine Empire has just suffered a catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Manzikert. The Seljuk Turks have overrun Anatolia, the empire's heartland, and the once mighty Byzantine army lies in ruins. With its native troops decimated and its territories shrinking, the empire faces an existential crisis. In this moment of desperation, the Byzantines turn to an age-old solution: mercenaries. These foreign soldiers, hailing from distant lands, would play a crucial role in the empire's survival, but at what cost? This is the story of how mercenaries and foreign soldiers became both the saviors and the undoing of the Byzantine Empire. The use of mercenaries was not new to the Byzantine Empire. Even during its golden age, the empire had relied on foreign troops to supplement its armies. However, after the Battle of Manzikert, the reliance on mercenaries became a necessity rather than a choice. The empire's native troops, once drawn from the theme system, were no longer sufficient to defend its borders. Enter the mercenaries, fierce warriors from the Norse lands, the steppes of Central Asia, and the mountains of the Caucasus. One of the most famous mercenary units in Byzantine history was the Varangian Guard, an elite force composed primarily of Norse and Anglo-Saxon warriors. These men, known for their loyalty and ferocity in battle, became the personal bodyguards of the Byzantine emperors. Their iconic double-headed axes and towering stature made them a fearsome sight on the battlefield. The Varangian Guard is a fascinating example of how the Byzantine Empire leveraged foreign talent to its advantage. These warriors, far from their homelands, had no local loyalties and were thus fiercely devoted to the emperor. However, the reliance on such units also highlights the empire's growing weakness. A state that cannot defend itself with its own people is a state in decline. The Varangian Guard was more than just a military unit. It was a symbol of the Byzantine Empire's ability to adapt and survive. These foreign warriors played a key role in some of the empire's most critical battles, from the defense of Constantinople against the Pechenegs in 1091 to the campaigns of Emperor Basil II in the Balkans. Their loyalty was legendary, and their presence on the battlefield often turned the tide in favor of the Byzantines. However, by the late Byzantine period, even the Varangian Guard had diminished in importance. The empire's shrinking territories and dwindling resources meant that it could no longer afford to maintain such an elite force. The Guard's numbers dwindled, and its role became more ceremonial than military. The decline of the Varangian Guard mirrors the broader decline of the Byzantine Empire. Once a symbol of imperial power, the Guard became a relic of a bygone era. Its fate serves as a reminder that even the most loyal and fearsome warriors cannot save an empire that is crumbling from within. While the Varangian Guard is the most famous example of foreign soldiers in Byzantine service, it was far from the only one. The Vardariatai, a cavalry unit composed of Hungarian and Cuman warriors, played a crucial role in the empire's defense during the 13th and 14th centuries. These men, originally mercenaries, were gradually integrated into Byzantine society and became loyal defenders of the empire. Another notable unit was the Tsakones, Marines who served as both soldiers and sailors. These men, often of Greek origin, were known for their distinctive armor adorned with white lines. They played a key role in defending the empire's coastal territories and naval interests. The integration of foreign units like the Vardariatai and the Tsakones highlights the Byzantine Empire's ability to assimilate diverse cultures and peoples. However, it also underscores the empire's growing dependence on outsiders. By the late Byzantine period, the empire's military was a patchwork of foreign mercenaries and local troops, lacking the cohesion and unity of earlier centuries. While mercenaries provided much-needed manpower, they also came with significant risks. Unlike native troops, mercenaries fought for pay, not loyalty. This made them inherently unreliable, especially in times of crisis. There are numerous examples of mercenaries switching sides or abandoning their posts when the going got tough. One infamous example is the Catalan Company, a group of Spanish mercenaries hired by Emperor Andronicos II in the early 14th century. Initially, the Catalans proved to be effective fighters, but they soon turned on their employers, plundering Byzantine territories and causing widespread destruction. Their betrayal was a stark reminder of the dangers of relying on mercenaries. The story of the Catalan Company is a cautionary tale about the perils of mercenary reliance. While mercenaries can provide short-term solutions, they are not a sustainable foundation for a military. Their loyalty is always conditional, and their actions can often do more harm than good. By the 15th century, the Byzantine Empire was a shadow of its former self. Its territories had shrunk to little more than the city of Constantinople, and its military was a hodgepodge of foreign mercenaries and local defenders. When the Ottomans laid siege to Constantinople in 1453, the Byzantines were forced to rely on a motley crew of defenders, including Genoese and Venetian mercenaries. These men fought bravely, but they were no match for the Ottoman superior numbers and firepower. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and its military, but it also marked the end of an era in which mercenaries played a central role in European warfare. The fall of Constantinople is a tragic reminder of the limitations of mercenary armies. While these men fought valiantly, they could not overcome the systemic weaknesses of the Byzantine Empire. The reliance on mercenaries, while necessary in the short term, ultimately contributed to the empire's downfall. The use of mercenaries in the Byzantine Empire offers valuable lessons for understanding the challenges of military organization and state survival. Mercenaries can provide short-term solutions, but they are not a sustainable foundation for a military. Their loyalty is always conditional, and their actions can often undermine the very state they are hired to defend. The story of Byzantine mercenaries is a microcosm of the broader challenges faced by the empire. It highlights the importance of self-reliance, unity, and adaptability in the face of external threats. The Byzantine Empire's reliance on mercenaries was both a symptom and a cause of its decline, serving as a cautionary tale for future generations. The use of mercenaries and foreign soldiers was a defining feature of the late Byzantine Empire. These men, hailing from distant lands, played a crucial role in the empire's survival, but they also contributed to its eventual downfall. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and its military, but the legacy of its mercenaries lives on, as a reminder of the challenges of governance and the importance of self-reliance. The final stand at Constantinople, the last gasp of the Byzantine Empire. Imagine it's the year 1453. The once mighty Byzantine Empire, which had stood as a bastion of civilization for over 1,000 years, is now reduced to a single city, Constantinople. Surrounded by the rising power of the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantines face their final test. The siege of Constantinople is not just a battle. It is the culmination of centuries of decline, a desperate last stand against an unstoppable force. This is the story of how a small, ill-equipped, and outnumbered Byzantine army fought to defend their city, their empire, and their legacy. It's a tale of heroism, tragedy, and the end of an era. By 1453, Constantinople was a shadow of its former glory. Once the richest and most powerful city in the world, it had been battered by centuries of warfare, economic decline, and political instability. The empire's territories had shrunk to little more than the city itself, and its population had dwindled to around 50,000 people. The mighty walls of Constantinople, which had repelled countless invaders over the centuries, were now the last line of defense against the Ottoman onslaught. The Ottomans, led by the young and ambitious Sultan Mehmed II, were a formidable foe. Their army numbered over 100,000 men, including elite janissaries, skilled artillerymen, and a powerful navy. In contrast, the Byzantines could muster only about 7,000 defenders, a mix of local troops, foreign mercenaries, and volunteers. The odds were overwhelmingly against them. The siege of Constantinople is a story of contrasts. On one side, you have the Ottomans, a rising power with vast resources, cutting-edge technology, and a unified command. On the other side, you have the Byzantines, a once great empire now reduced to a single city, relying on a patchwork army of locals and foreigners. It's a classic underdog story, but one with a tragic ending. The Byzantine defenders were a diverse group, united by their determination to protect their city. At the heart of the defense was Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, a brave and charismatic leader who refused to surrender. Alongside him were Giovanni Giustiniani, a Genoese mercenary captain, and his contingent of professional soldiers. Other defenders included Venetian and Genoese sailors, Cretan archers, and even a small group of Ottoman defectors. One of the most remarkable aspects of the defense was the role of ordinary citizens. Men, women, and even children took part in the effort, repairing walls, carrying supplies, and fighting alongside the soldiers. The Byzantines knew that this was their last stand, and they were determined to go down fighting. The diversity of the defenders highlights the Byzantine Empire's ability to bring people together, even in its darkest hour. However, it also underscores the empire's desperate situation. A city that once commanded the loyalty of millions now relied on a handful of foreigners and volunteers to defend it. This lack of unity and resources would prove to be a fatal weakness. The Ottoman army that besieged Constantinople was a far cry from the disorganized forces that had threatened the city in previous centuries. Mehmed II had spent years preparing for this moment, assembling a vast army and acquiring the latest military technology. The most fearsome of these were the giant cannons designed by the Hungarian engineer Orban. These massive weapons, capable of firing stone balls weighing over 1,000 pounds, were unlike anything the Byzantines had ever seen. The Ottomans also had a powerful navy, which blockaded the city from the sea. While the Byzantines managed to repel several naval attacks, the sheer size of the Ottoman fleet made it impossible to break the blockade. The city was completely cut off from the outside world. The Ottomans' use of advanced technology and tactics is a testament to their adaptability and ambition. Mehmed II was not just a conqueror, he was a visionary who understood the importance of innovation in warfare. In contrast, the Byzantines were stuck in the past, relying on outdated methods and equipment. This technological gap was a key factor in the city's fall. The siege of Constantinople began on April 6, 1453, and lasted for 53 days. The Ottomans launched relentless attacks on the city's walls, using their cannons to create breaches and their infantry to storm the defenses. The Byzantines fought valiantly, repelling wave after wave of attackers, but they were gradually worn down by the sheer scale of the assault. One of the most dramatic moments of the siege came on May 29th, when the Ottomans launched a final, all-out attack. Despite being outnumbered and exhausted, the defenders held their ground for hours, inflicting heavy casualties on the attackers. However, a critical mistake, a gate left open by accident, allowed the Ottomans to breach the inner walls. The city was lost. The fall of Constantinople was not just a military defeat, it was a symbolic end to an era. The Byzantines' heroic defense, while inspiring, could not overcome the overwhelming odds they faced. The siege is a reminder that bravery and determination, while important, are not enough to win a war. Strategy, resources, and technology are equally crucial. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of a new era in world history. The city, renamed Istanbul, became the capital of the Ottoman Empire, which would dominate the region for centuries. For the Byzantines, the loss of their city was a devastating blow, but it was also the culmination of a long decline that had begun centuries earlier. The fall of Constantinople is often seen as a turning point in history, marking the end of the medieval period and the beginning of the Renaissance. However, it's important to remember that the Byzantine Empire's decline was a gradual process, not a sudden event. The siege of 1453 was simply the final chapter in a long and tragic story. The fall of Constantinople offers valuable lessons for understanding the rise and fall of empires. It highlights the importance of adaptability, innovation, and unity in the face of external threats. The Byzantines' inability to adapt to changing circumstances, coupled with their reliance on outdated methods and foreign aid, ultimately sealed their fate. The story of Constantinople is a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency and the importance of self-reliance. While the Byzantines' heroic defense is inspiring, it also serves as a reminder that even the greatest empires are not invincible. The lessons of 1453 are as relevant today as they were over 500 years ago. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the end of an era in world history. It was a moment of profound significance, not just for the Byzantines, but for the entire world. The city's defenders fought bravely, but they were ultimately unable to withstand the overwhelming power of the Ottoman Empire. Their story is one of heroism, tragedy, and the enduring legacy of a once great civilization.